Welcome to NFL Nexus, the place where we connect the dots on all the biggest stories happening around the league. And today, man, we are diving deep into a really fascinating situation brewing in Philadelphia, one that could totally reshape the entire NFC. We're talking about a chain reaction, a real domino effect that all kicks off with one massive, potentially franchise-altering question. Now, before we get into it, if this is the kind of deep dive content you love, do me a huge favor. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel and be sure to hit that like button. It really helps us out. And hey, if you're looking for something cool for the football fans in your life, you can help support our work by checking out our unique NFL coloring books. They're perfect for kids, grandkids, even adults. You can grab them through the link in the description or just scan the QR code right there on your screen. All right, let's get this thing started.
Okay, let's really set the stage here. The Philadelphia Eagles are at a major crossroads. We all saw what happened last season, that incredible collapse after our hot start. The entire organization is under a microscope right now, and just bubbling under the surface is a scenario that, honestly, most fans would probably call completely unthinkable, but it just won't go away. We're talking about a single move that could redefine their offense for the next 5 years, and it all comes down to this one question. What if the Eagles actually trade their superstar wide receiver A.J. Brown? I know, on the surface it sounds absolutely wild. Why would you ever trade a top 5 player at his position? But as we're going to see, this is way more than just some random rumor. It's a potential strategic pivot, a calculated risk with a whole cascade of consequences that could unleash a brand new star and usher in a totally new offensive philosophy under a rookie play caller.
So here's how we're going to break it all down in this explainer. We're going to follow this chain of events piece by piece. First, we'll dig into the A.J. Brown question itself. Why this rumor actually has some legs despite what the team is saying publicly. Then, we'll look at the first big domino that would fall. DeVonta Smith's potential leap from being a fantastic number 2 receiver to a true, bona fide number 1 guy. From there, we got to introduce the new architect of the offense, a rookie OC with a very, very specific vision. And that leads us to a really clever personnel move, one we're calling the comfort food trade, which is designed to make this whole transition go a lot smoother. And then finally, we'll put all the pieces together to see how these moves could forge a completely new offensive identity for the Philadelphia Eagles. So let's start with the move that could set this whole thing in motion.
Yeah, it all starts with number 11, A.J. Brown. The guy is an elite talent, no question about it. He is an alpha receiver in every sense of the word. But as the Eagles' 2023 season went off the rails, so did the stories surrounding Brown. We all saw it, right? The frustrations on the sideline, the, let's call it cryptic social media activity, and of course the reports about some tension in the locker room. Now, to be clear, the Eagles' front office, from GM Howie Roseman all the way to head coach Nick Sirianni, they've been adamant. They've stood at the podium and said, A.J. Brown isn't going anywhere. But we all know how the NFL works. Where there's smoke, there's often fire. And in this case, that smoke is being fanned by a very real and very significant financial reality that makes this seemingly impossible move, well, actually possible.
This right here, this is the key to the entire conversation. It's a date on the calendar, June 1st. In the NFL's financial world, that date is everything. So publicly, yeah, the Eagles are saying all the right things, that he's their guy, but behind closed doors, it's the salary cap that dictates strategy. And here's the deal. If they were to trade A.J. Brown before June 1st, they'd get hit with a massive, crippling financial penalty all in 1 year, which would make a trade almost impossible. But if they wait until after June 1st, a specific league rule kicks in that allows them to manage that financial hit in a much, much smarter way. It's basically an accounting trick, and it completely changes the math on this whole situation.
So let's just break down what this post-June 1st thing actually means, because it's super important. When a team gives a player a big signing bonus, they don't have to count it all against their salary cap in 1 year. They spread that cap hit out over the life of the contract. The part of the bonus that hasn't been counted yet is what we call dead money. Think of it like a credit card balance. A trade before June 1st is like the bank demanding you pay off your entire credit card balance right now, this second. It's painful and it kills your spending power. But a trade after June 1st is like the bank saying, hey, you can pay half of that balance this year and the other half next year. It gives the team immediate breathing room, immediate cap relief, and the financial flexibility to go out and make other moves. This rule's the absolute linchpin that turns this from a wild fan rumor into a legitimate, calculated strategic option. And it's what could unlock the very next domino.
Okay, so let's just follow the logic here. If the Eagles do it, if they pull the trigger and trade A.J. Brown, that creates this massive void at the top of their wide receiver depth chart. So who steps up? Well, the answer is already on the roster, and his name is DeVonta Smith. You know him as the Slim Reaper. Smith has been the absolute consummate professional, the perfect number 2 receiver playing opposite the dominant physical presence of Brown. He's known for his silky smooth, precise route running, his unbelievable hands, and his quiet lead-by-example attitude. He doesn't have that same imposing physical style as A.J. Brown, but his skill set is absolutely elite. For years, he's produced at a super high level without ever being the guy that defenses are solely focused on stopping. So the billion-dollar question becomes, what happens when he is that guy?
And look, his production already speaks for itself. Look at that number up there, 1,004. That's his average receiving yards per season. I want you to just think about that for a second. There are plenty of #1 receivers in this league who would kill to average that number consistently. And DeVonta Smith is doing it as the clear second option in his own offense, sharing targets with a monster like A.J. Brown and a top tight end in Dallas Goedert. He's still putting up numbers like a top-tier weapon. He's a technician. But here's the really tantalizing question, the one that the Eagles front office has to be wrestling with. Is this his ceiling, or is this just his floor? What kind of insane numbers could he put up if he's the one getting 150, 160 targets a season? What happens when the whole offensive game plan is built around getting him the football? Now, to try and figure out what that leap could look like, sources say the Eagles are actually looking at a really interesting case study. It's a projection based on a hypothetical scenario out in Seattle. Imagine if the Seahawks were to trade away their own big physical superstar DK Metcalf. What would happen to their young, super-skilled route runner Jaxon Smith-Njigba, or JSN? The numbers you're seeing on this table, they represent that projection. So on the left, you've got JSN's numbers while playing next to Metcalf. They're solid but not spectacular. But then, look at the column on the right. That's the projected explosion. This right here, this is the blueprint for the kind of leap the Eagles believe is totally possible for DeVonta Smith. Let's just visualize this for a second because this jump is absolutely staggering. In this model, JSN's receiving yards per game literally more than double. They go from a very respectable 52 yards a game to an elite 105. His entire role on the team transforms overnight. He goes from being a complementary piece of the puzzle to being the entire engine of the passing game. This is the exact kind of projection that gets a GM and a front office really excited. They look at DeVonta Smith, a guy with a very similar skill set to JSN, a master route runner, incredible hands, and they see this exact blueprint. They believe that by taking that huge, target-dominant receiver out of the picture, they can unlock a whole new level of production from Smith, making him the focal point of everything they do. Okay, but we have to add a dose of reality here, right? It's crucial. This isn't a perfect copy and paste comparison. The offenses themselves, the ecosystems, are fundamentally different. The Eagles' offense is built around the unique, incredible talents of Jalen Hurts, a true dual-threat quarterback. Their scheme is heavily based on the run game, on RPOs, where Hurts' ability to take off and run is just as important as his arm. Now, in that Seattle projection, their quarterback, Sam Darnold, is more of a traditional pocket passer, which naturally leads to a more pass-happy attack. This context is absolutely vital, so while DeVonta Smith would for sure see a huge spike in targets, the total number of passes thrown by the offense might not be as high as it was for JSN in this specific model. It's a key variable you got to consider, but the underlying idea of his potential is still incredibly powerful.
And what makes this also interesting is that this potential shift in player philosophy lines up perfectly with the biggest change the Eagles made this entire offseason, a complete overhaul of their offensive coaching staff. See, if you're going to build your passing attack around a precise route runner instead of a physically dominant superstar, you need a scheme, a system, that highlights that specific skill set. And that is where the new architect comes in. The Eagles went out and hired 33-year-old Sean Mannigan, a first-time offensive coordinator, to design and call the plays for this potential new-look offense.
Now, Mannion's journey to becoming an OC isn't the traditional one, but it's one we're seeing more and more. For 9 seasons, he was the classic backup quarterback. Think about what that means. He spent almost a decade inside NFL quarterback rooms, learning multiple offensive systems from the ground up. His job every week was to run the scout team in practice, which means he had to learn the opposing team's offense inside and out to give his own defense a good look. He was basically a coach on the field, absorbing all the little nuances of play design and how to attack defenses. His most important stop was in 2017 with the Rams, where he worked under a young, rising offensive coordinator named Matt LaFleur. Years later, after he retired as a player, he connected with LaFleur again in Green Bay. His deep understanding of offensive football led to this rapid climb up the coaching ladder, which all led to him being hired as the Eagles OC this year.
And Mannion isn't just bringing a new set of plays. He's bringing a completely new philosophy to Philadelphia. He's a disciple of the Kyle Shanahan and Matt LaFleur coaching tree, which, as you know, runs one of the most effective and popular offensive systems in the entire league. This system is specifically designed to beat modern NFL defenses. It uses tons of pre-snap motion, a wide zone running game, and really complex play-action fakes to mess with defenders' eyes and create total confusion. The whole idea is to make every single play look identical at the snap. Is it a run? Is it a pass?
By the time the defense finally figures it out, it's already too late. It's a system built on out-syncing and out-scheming your opponent, not just lining up and overpowering them.
So let's look at the key ingredients here. First, you're going to see constant motion before the snap, players shifting all over the place. That's designed to give the quarterback clues about what the defense is doing. The run game is based on outside zone, which just means the running back is trying to stretch the play to the sideline, forcing the whole defense to run with him. This sideways movement creates natural running lanes, but way more importantly, it's what sets up the deadly play-action pass. Linebackers have to fly up to stop the run, and that leaves this huge void right behind them for the pass. It is a system that values timing and precision above all else, and it is absolutely tailor-made for a player like DeVonta Smith, who wins with his technical mastery, not just his brute force. It's a perfect marriage of the player and the scheme.
But okay, there is a major challenge here. You've got a brand new, very complex offensive system, and it's being installed by a 33-year-old who's calling plays for the very first time. I mean, that is a recipe for some serious growing pains. So how do you lower the risk? How do you speed up the learning curve for the entire offense? Well, you do it by giving your new coordinator a taste of something familiar. You get him some comfort food.
I want you to think about it this way. Installing a brand new offense is like trying to teach an entire classroom of 50 people a new language from scratch, but they all have to be completely fluent in just a few months. The vocabulary is different, the sentence structure is different, everything is brand new. A play call that used to be 5 words might now be a 10-word sentence that means something totally different. This communication gap is what leads to those really ugly, disjointed offensive performances we see in September. Guys running the wrong routes, missed assignments, broken plays, turnovers. So to speed this whole process up, the Eagles made a subtle, but frankly, an incredibly smart move.
And here you have it straight from the horse's mouth. This is Eagles GM Howie Roseman basically spelling out the entire philosophy. He's talking here about the team trading for wide receiver Donte Wicks from the Green Bay Packers. And he's just admitting it. He's saying, look, we're selfish. We're looking for every single advantage we can possibly get. And that last part, it's a plus when they've worked with those guys. That is the entire point. Wicks isn't just another talented receiver. He's a guy who has spent his whole career soaking in the Matt LaFleur system in Green Bay, the exact same system that Sean Mannion, who was his coach last year, is bringing with him to Philly.
This is exactly why that trade was so brilliant. Wicks is so much more than just another receiver in the meeting room. He is a human Rosetta Stone for this new offense. He's already fluent in the language. When Sean Mannion is up there installing a new play, Wicks doesn't have to learn it. He already knows it. He understands the little details, the exact depth of the route, the landmark you're supposed to aim for on a cut, the timing with the quarterback's drop. He essentially becomes a translator on the field, in the huddle, on the sideline. When another player is confused, Wicks can be the guy to explain it. He's literally an extension of the coaching staff, just wearing a helmet and pads, and his presence is going to dramatically speed up the learning curve for everybody else.
So let's just step back for a second and look at the whole picture. This isn't just one move in a vacuum. It's a series of calculated decisions that are all pointing in the exact same direction. You've got the potential blockbuster trade of a superstar. You have the planned elevation of another star. You have the hiring of a new offensive coordinator with a very specific scheme-based philosophy. And you have the savvy acquisition of a player just to accelerate the whole learning process. When you line up all of these dominoes, you can see a clear and deliberate plan taking shape, a complete and total reinvention of the Philadelphia Eagles offense. This slide right here, it lays out the 4-step domino effect perfectly. This is a coherent strategy, not just a bunch of random moves. Step 1 is the catalyst. The superstar departs. Trading A.J. Brown creates financial flexibility, sure, but just as important, it frees up the 150-plus targets that he gets every single season. That leads right into Step 2. A new star emerges. DeVonta Smith gets to step out of that shadow and is finally given the volume and the opportunity to become a true WR1. This change in personnel makes Step 3 necessary. A new system is installed. Sean Mannion brings in a scheme that doesn't rely on one dominant physical receiver, but instead rewards precision, timing, and balance from everyone. And that leads to Step 4. The roster is tailored. A move like getting Donte Wicks ensures that new system is learned and executed as fast and as efficiently as possible. It's a fundamental shift in identity. They're moving away from an offense defined by one player's individual dominance and toward one defined by the collective execution of a brilliant scheme. And all of this, it brings us to the final and I think the most fascinating question of all. Is it actually possible that trading a top 5 receiver in the entire National Football League could somehow make this Eagles offense better? Could it make them more unpredictable, more balanced, and ultimately a lot harder to defend over the long haul? It is the absolute definition of a high-risk, high-reward gamble. It could be the masterstroke that leads them to their next Super Bowl, or it could be a disastrous miscalculation that sets the franchise back for years. That is the question being asked in Philadelphia. So, I want to know what you think. Is this a brilliant, forward-thinking pivot or a franchise-altering mistake? Drop your opinion in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, please hit that like button and make sure you're subscribed to NFL Nexus for more deep dives that connect the dots across the league. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.